Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Zach with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. One day after what seemed to be the worst offensive performance I've ever seen from a team in the New York Giants against the Miami Dolphins, Mike Longneck Glennon, he could sure as hell see over the offensive line, but he sure as hell couldn't hit his receivers. That pass behind John Ross still irks me a day later. The throws out of bounds, the standing in the pocket with good pocket at times. Andrew Thomas stonewalled Jalen Phillips on multiple occasions. Mike Glennon sitting there wondering if his long is the same length of a giraffe. I don't understand what he was thinking. Throw the ball away at least. Don't take a sack there. It's just stupid, just bad football. And I said this yesterday on the post-game reaction video. I don't know how the coaches came to the conclusion that Mike Glennon was the right pick to be the backup quarterback for the Giants. I would have rather had Colt McCoy. You could have traded for Gardner Minshew, who had 2 touchdowns and 250 yards with the Eagles yesterday. Mike Glennon is a standstill, cement-footed, long neck, he shouldn't even be in the NFL. He is abysmal, awful. I don't understand how how they decided to go out and actually sign a quarterback that was so opposite of Daniel Jones. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Because your backup should have the same strengths as your starter. Obviously, at not the same level. It's going to be a reduced level, but they should have the similar strengths. The ability to run, the ability to not mess up your entire offensive scheme and flow and playbook when he's installed. It makes no logical sense. These coaches are off the wagon. They are hardcore meth addicts at this point. I don't know what they're doing. I don't get the decisions they're making, let alone timeout usage. Pissed me off. But today's episode is not going to be about that. Today's episode is going to be about something even more disappointing and more annoying. It's going to be about the Giants' salary cap situation for next year and a couple of decisions that we're going to talk about and debate, revolving around, Saquon Barkley, a couple of players that might be cut, that maybe they should cut. The offensive line, what spots need to be replaced and where is that money coming from? Do they even have the money to sign their draft selections? That's a big question too. But Anthony, before we dive into all this absolutely heinous, awful stuff, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right. If I'm sure most of you know, I was at the game yesterday. I was down in Miami, was able to experience the Giants offense in real time. It was not enjoyable. Yes, I had a good fun time at the game with my family. No, I did not have a good time watching the New York Giants play football because they're terrible. They're so difficult to watch. And I will say this. Credit to Tua Tagovailoa. I know the Giants defensive backs, Logan Ryan, took like a little shot at him, said he's the emergency QB. He can do what Tua does and throw 2-yard passes to the left, right? Tua made a throw down the stretch that was honestly just perfect, and it cemented the win for the Dolphins. And that's what the Giants needed out of their quarterback yesterday, just to make 1 or 2 of those huge throws. They had a backup, so they couldn't do it. But you know what? There aren't that many games where Daniel Jones does it either. And that throw by Tua at the end to Mike Gesicki over the middle, I was in the end zone looking where the Dolphins were going downfield, so they were going away from me. So I saw what Tua saw. And what I saw was a guy who was blanketed in coverage, and it would take an absolute perfect dime to complete that pass. And that's exactly what Tua delivered. And that's how the Dolphins got that first down and ultimately beat the Giants in that game. It was an exceptional throw, and that was really the difference maker in that game. It was a matter of the Giants defense, even when they were playing well, even on a good coverage play like that, the quarterback just played a little bit better. And for the Giants offense, they never had an opportunity like that. They never had a play where their quarterback just made a play that was a little bit better than the defense's. The Dolphins defense had severely outmatched the Giants offense from the start to the finish of the game. Taken it by the stat that the Giants had 0 touchdowns. Take a look at that. The Giants couldn't even get themselves in the end zone. It was ridiculous. I was there with my 8-year-old cousin. I'm like, so when the other team gets in the end zone, it's bad. When our team gets in the end zone, it's good. Well, when's our team getting in the end zone is what he asked. I said, probably never. That's the Giants offense. They were never getting in the end zone. It was very unfortunate to watch. But listen, this was kind of like the wake-up call, right? This is all about roster construction. And yeah, we could talk about the coaching staff and everything, but you look at the way that the Giants roster is constructed. This is not a built-to-win roster. And that's what we're going to get into today. The Giants, they're built to win in the sense that they don't have any cap space for the future. They're built for a win now opportunity. This is not a win now team because we cannot win now because this team is not built to win. So going forward, what are the Giants going to do about that? They have 0 cap space remaining. It seems very, very likely that Dave Gettleman's getting shot to the moon and out of New York, as he should have in 2019 probably. But the Giants are going to go forward here with 0 cap space, really, like $3.5 million. It's going to be really tough, but let's get into it, Alex, and discuss what their future options are.
Yeah, and before we do that, Jabril Peppers just posted something quite cryptic, and I want to get your take on it. He says, "Just because you've been bumped up to first chair in the orchestra doesn't mean you can compose a symphony." Is this suggesting Gettleman? Is this suggesting Freddie Kitchens? I mean, it's definitely a little bit vague, a little bit cryptic, a little bit throwing some gas into the fire here. I not don't have no idea who he's talking about. I don't know if this actually is about anybody, but it seems like Jabril Peppers is gone, right? It seems like he's not going to be retained. We don't have the money to sign him. We have to clear cap as much as possible for, I guess, an offensive lineman, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But at the end of the day, Jabril Peppers, the Giants defense has been playing phenomenally well lately. I mean, despite letting up 20 points to Miami, it's not that much at all. It's actually a pretty good game. And despite the fact that the offense couldn't get anything going, generated absolutely nothing to help them, I think that the defense has been just fine without Jabril Peppers. I love Jabril Peppers. I love his energy. I love everything about him. But I do think that he is not essential to this team's defense at the time. Anthony, what are you thinking about this kind of cryptic tweet? Because at this point, it seems like he's like already kind of out of the rotation, and he's done for the year anyway.
Yeah, I think that this is a tweet about Joe Judge. That's what it sounds like to me. Because Joe Judge right now is the leader of the team. He's been bumped up to the top, and he's not exactly leading this team, right? He's not leading the orchestra, just as Jabril Peppers is saying there. I think that's who he's referring to. I doubt he's referring to a player within their locker room. I think that the defensive backs seem to have a really good relationship with one another. There's no way that he's taking this shot at Xavier McKinney or Logan Ryan, in my opinion. But this absolutely does seem like something towards the coaching staff. And Jabril Peppers knows he's not coming back next year. At this point, I mean, weeks before he got injured, wasn't even weeks. I think it was the week of. It was very ominous the way that core or that lined up on the timeline. I think it was the week of. Jabril Peppers said something like, "I don't know if I'm going to be back next year." And then they said, "Do you want to be?" And he said, "I just want to win games." Well, the Giants still aren't winning games, and he's not on the field to help them win games. It sounds like he just wants to leave in the offseason and go somewhere that's better, that he can win games. That's what it sounded like weeks ago. And that's what I assume will happen at the end of this regular season. I assume that Jabril Peppers will leave in free agency for a better team. And you know what? I salute. More power to you. Go ahead, because the Giants, they're not a winning team. And as we're about to discuss, they don't look like they're about to be a winning team because they don't have the cap space to turn their team around. I mean, they're going to have to clear a ton of cap space just to make room for their draft picks. They don't even have the money to sign their draft picks in this upcoming draft. So the Giants are in really bad shape right now, and we're going to have to discuss that because this is going to be basically the piano hanging overhead. That's piano dangling overhead. It's impending doom. There's really no out for the Giants right now unless they get really creative with their cap space, and that's going to take a new super smart GM to step in here and get super creative and hopefully fix this thing. But right now, Jabril Peppers, he's frustrated. I'm frustrated. I know I was once the leader of the Joe Judge fan club. I can't call myself that anymore. And honestly, if this is a shot at Joe Judge, I'm starting to agree with Jabril and many of the other fans that dislike Joe Judge because, man, in real time yesterday, dude, every single time the Giants were up to snap, it looked like they were going to get a delayed game. And then he just started wasting timeouts. I mean, when it's 2nd and 24, you don't call a timeout if you're going to get a delayed game. It's
It was
already
so
second and
bad. It
24.
was
You
so
might as well
bad.
just move back an extra 5 yards because you're not getting the first down on that drive regardless, right? I mean, Joe Judge, man, I don't know. I have a lot of things to say, Alex. Very frustrated, but don't want to take us too far off topic. So get us back on track, please.
I mean, look, it's just the same problems over and over again. You got me. You hooked me, man. But it's the same things that he makes the same mistakes over and over. That's what frustrates me. He has not learned from his own mistakes. And when you're a head coach and you're too stubborn to realize that you're not good at something or you're having problems with something, find somebody who is. Hire somebody to help you with the timeouts and the usage of these in the clock management. He is so bad at the clock management, so bad at using timeouts. Like I was watching as the first quarter came down to an end, and the clock was 1 second behind the game clock, and he called a timeout and got confused. I don't know if it was different in the field, but from what it showed on TV, it looked like it was just gonna, the quarter was gonna expire. Instead, he called a timeout and wasted one, and then you need those timeouts later on. It's just every single game we're like, dude, why are you using these timeouts? Like, what are you doing? Like, they're so valuable, they're gold, and he's selling them like they're copper. So I don't really get it. But let's dive into the actual purpose of this video, because we could go on all day about these different variations of Joe Judge's mistakes. But I'll tell you what, Giants, their cap space is a problem. As we know, the cap is fluid. They can make moves. The only player that currently is under their dead money Cap hit is Sam Beal. It's only 262K. So they're pretty much getting all these guys, including Golden Tate, DeAndre Baker, Kevin Zeitler, Fadio Denabo, Josh Jackson. There's like a ton of players, ton of players off 16.3 million in dead money. They're getting that off the books. So that's really, really great. But in 2022, it doesn't look much better because the cap is expected to increase 30 million. Now, I'm looking at overthecap.com. They've already accounted for that, right? So the expectation is that the total cap, the ceiling will be $207.2 million. The Giants only have $3.5 million because they've already structured the contracts. They pushed money back for James Bradbury. They pushed money back for Nate Solder. They pushed money back for Leonard Williams and Kenny Golladay and Adoree Jackson. All this money accumulates and smacks them in the mouth next offseason, right? So James Bradbury is counting $21.8 million cap hit. If they cut him, it's 9.7 million in dead money, so they'd save 11 million there. But he's your number one corner right now. I don't know how you get rid of him. I guess maybe you elevate Adoree Jackson. You hope that Aaron Robinson takes a steps forward, but I just don't think he's ready for that. I think James Bradbury is essential to this team, especially if they keep, of course, Patrick Graham. Saquon Barkley, that's the debate that we really have to have, right? He's going to count $7.2 million. It's guaranteed. The only way to get that money off the books is to trade him, Anthony. Now, fifth-year option, he's pretty much just not the same player. It takes a year to really get your sea legs back after an ACL tear. I think he'll come back next year and be better, but if the offensive line doesn't improve, it doesn't matter. He's not going to be better if the offensive line isn't better. He'll be better on a new team. He needs to change his scenery. He needs to get the hell out of New York. If he went to a team like the Colts, they don't need him. They have Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines, but I'm saying that if he went to a team that good and their offensive line that stout, he'd be an absolute monster. But I just don't think that those teams value a running back like that because look at Elijah Mitchell. He's like a late round pick. He's coming in here. He's almost 1,000-yard rusher on the year. These teams they know all we need is a good offensive line. We don't need to invest big money on the Saquon Barkley. It's not necessary. So who do you sell Saquon Barkley to? That's the question. Is he even tradable? Who the hell wants him? And what are they going to give up for him? Maybe a 4th-round pick? Second overall pick 4 years later, trading for a 4th, 5th-round pick. It's an abomination. Dave Gettleman should have been shot to the moon last year. The fact that John Maris sits there and is going to let him retire amicably is actually makes my blood boil, Anthony. But if there is a way, if there's an avenue for the Giants to trade away Saquon Barkley, get his money off the books, are you doing it?
Absolutely. Yeah, at this point, listen, it's unfortunate. Saquon should not have been the 2nd overall pick. We can get that out of the way. No, you shouldn't take a running back with number 2, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's say that he should have been the number 2 overall pick and that running backs taken at number 2 are totally fine. Well, this player is not living up to a number 2 overall selection, regardless of his position. He has not looked good since 2018. I mean, he looked good in the second half of 2019. He missed basically all of 2020. In 2021, he makes 1 or 2 10-plus yard runs per game, and we all go, ooh, vintage Saquon, he's on his way back, he's looking healthy again, and then he kind of disappears for the rest of the game. And, of course, this does tie into the fact that running backs taken at number 2, it's not a good idea, and here's why. What is Saquon Barkley dependent on? He's dependent on the offensive line. He's also dependent on the quarterback. It's shown that when the quarterback is having a bad game, so is Saquon Barkley. When the quarterback is having a really good game, like Daniel Jones did against the Saints, Saquon Barkley has a good game. But when Mike Glennon is having a game like he's having against the Dolphins, what could Saquon Barkley do? And of course, like I said, the offensive line, I mean, when the offensive line is playing just as bad as it is, no running back is going to find that much of success. And if you look at it, Saquon Barkley is finding just as much success now as Devontae Booker was weeks ago when Saquon Barkley was out. There is no difference between those two players,
I would argue Booker was better.
Except for the fact that Booker has actually been playing better. Booker didn't have 2 drops in yesterday's game. Saquon Barkley had 2 drops. Now, you don't spend the number 2 overall pick on a running back that can't contribute in the receiving game. You draft that running back because you think that he can contribute and he'll catch everything thrown his way, and then he'll catch it and run with it, not drop 2 passes in the first half. Now, that's a huge thing. And the third thing that a running back depends on is a play caller. They need a good offensive coordinator, good offensive play caller to put them in position, call good plays for them to find success. Build the scheme that matches their playing style. The Giants don't have a good offensive line. They don't have good consistent quarterback play, and they do not have a good play caller. All 3 of the things that a running back depends on, the Giants do not have. So Saquon Barkley cannot succeed in this environment. You are right, Alex. He needs a change of scenery. But additionally speaking to that point, Saquon Barkley is not even playing good. He doesn't look good to me. He misses holes. There was a play
It looks
yesterday
slow,
again.
really slow.
There was a play where the Giants again were going away from me. So I could see the offensive line in front of me and they were pretty close to my end zone. And Saquon Barkley took a handoff and it was kind of going towards the tackle. And I saw the left side of the field, not a single person around there. He bounces that thing outside, it's daylight. And he just puts his head down and plunges into the back of the offensive lineman. I'm like, you know what? 2018, Saquon Barkley might have scored that play. He might have taken that outside and then up the sideline, and it's at least a 40-yard gain. But 2021, Saquon Barkley, what can he do other than just put his head down and fall forward into contact? Because you know what? The injuries, they've piled on. He can't run the way that he used to. He's not the player that he used to be. It's very upsetting. It sucks. I was hoping for a very long and successful career out of Saquon Barkley, but unfortunately, it seems like injuries derailed him. Call it another Derrick Rose story if you must. Injuries have absolutely derailed this kid's career. It's really sad to watch happen in real time, but that's ultimately just the story of Saquon Barkley. Too many injuries too soon. I don't think he's ever going to return to form, to return to being the player that he was in 2018. So at this point, if you're the Giants, it's time to cut your losses in the offseason and just move on.
First of all, don't ever disrespect Derrick Rose like that. Derrick Rose is a good player.
Derrick Rose
Derrick
is one of
Rose
my
is a
favorite
great
players of
player.
all time. Derrick Rose before he was even on the Knicks was one of my favorite players of all time because when he was the youngest MVP of all time,
Oh,
I
he
mean,
was
I just thought it
amazing.
was the coolest thing ever. I watch his highlights like a couple
He
times a
lost
month
his jump. He
when he was
lost
on
the
the Bulls.
ACL tears. He lost his bounce, but the guy is one of the smartest basketball players I've seen. Man, he
Yeah,
is
you know
such a good
what?
floor
So
general.
I'll actually add in there that makes a pretty good comparison because when Derrick Rose blew out his knee, he was one player before he blew out his knee. He was a super explosive, athletic point guard that could basically
He
dunk on
changed his style.
anybody. He changed his style of play after the injury, and it found great success for him. He became a smarter player. He's not the same player. He's never going to be vintage D Rose, and he even said that in an interview. I remember reading this
I don't
from
even think he
Derrick
can dunk
Rose.
anymore.
Yeah, he can dunk, but he doesn't because it's just not good for him, and it's like very light dunking. It's why not just do the layup? It's the same amount of points. But he changed his game, his playing style, and he found great success. Saquon Barkley has not found great success in changing his playing style, but he cannot go back to his old playing style. So that is a great comparison. You're saying don't compare him to Derrick Rose. Well, you can compare him to Derrick Rose in the way that Derrick Rose was super athletic, super young, and super talented when he was young before his injuries. But afterwards, took him some time, but he figured it out and he changed his playing style and created a second half of his career that was super successful. Saquon Barkley has not been able to change his playing style successfully, and that's ultimately going to be the downfall of Saquon Barkley. So I think it is a fair comparison. It's just not a positive comparison. It's unfortunately for Saquon a negative comparison.
I'd also argue that Saquon is a lot more reliant on other players performing well than a singular basketball player. So like
Well,
Derrick Rose can dominate
of
on his own,
course.
but like Saquon is never going to be a good player with the Giants. Like unfortunately, if I'm bursting your bubble right now, which I imagine I'm probably not, Saquon is never going to be a good player with the Giants. His career in blue is probably over after this season. We have to trade him. We can't be paying $7 million to a player that isn't going to perform well because the offensive line isn't good. And that brings me to the next portion of this segment, right? The offensive line is going to require a total makeover this year aside from Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is the only position, the only guy on this line that is deserving to stick here long term. And he has taken, his game to another level this year. He has proved that he is a phenomenal left tackle with a lot more potential left to untap if he can remain healthy. Now, we need replacements at left guard, potentially center, right guard, and right tackle. And I'll tell you why. Left guard, if you think Shane Lemieux is the future, go watch his film from last year. Whatever made you think that he is a starting level player, it's all based on hope. Hoping that Shane Lemieux is a starting level player is not enough to convince me that he is a starting level player anymore. We've been hoping for the Giants to turn things around. We've been hoping that Dave Gettleman hit on draft picks, hoping that Daniel Jones is the guy, or hoping that Saquon Barkley can return to full health. It hasn't worked out. Hope is out the window. We are no longer hoping. It is action or get the freak out of New York, man. That is it. Shane Lemieux is a backup level player as far as I'm concerned at this point in time. Nick Gates The guy had like 11 surgeries. Nobody knows if he's going to make a full recovery, let alone be the player he was before. And he was about an average level center before that. So, if he gets anywhere close to that again, that would be amazing. That would be a miracle. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's a position that is shored up. That's fine right now. We have to be looking for centers too, which is why a lot of people want Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa in this draft class. Right guard, Will Hernandez, he let up 2 sacks against Miami. He has had an abysmal last few games after the bye week. He has looked awful, 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 awful. He is in a contract year. There's no way the Giants are retaining him unless it's on an extremely cheap contract. But another team will see him and say, we like him in a heavier based offensive line. The Giants don't use their offensive linemen properly. Their scheme is all over the place. Will Hernandez is no longer going to be on the New York Giants because his contract is expiring, right? When his contract is expiring, you let up 2 sacks the week before. There is no justification for retaining him. We don't even have the money to retain him if we wanted to. Another team will see Will Hernandez and say, he's actually a player that we can work around. Maybe he's a backup. Maybe he's a guy that we can start there and we can put him next to better players that aren't Billy Price and Nate Solder and develop him with some confidence. Confidence goes a long way in football players. And Will Hernandez, in my opinion, could be a good player. The Giants have just put absolute non-existent talent next to him over and over and over again. Will Hernandez and Nick Gates were actually a pretty solid combo until they decided, let's go and trade for Billy Price, move Nick Gates to left guard. The first half of the first game he played there, Billy Price lets up a guy and he falls on Nick Gates' leg and snaps his leg in half. Like, I just, it's like you're building a team to fail. Dave Gettleman has come here to ruin this organization. I will have so much hatred until the day I die for Dave Gettleman because of what he did, the misery he's put us through. But Will Hernandez probably gone. Nate Solder has a voided contract year next season, so he'll count $4 million in dead cap no matter what. There's no way to get that money off. So $4 million in dead cap, he's not even on the team. That's what they agreed to do to restructure his deal just to lower the amount of cap space that he was being hit. They were basically going to say, we're either going to cut you or you can restructure your deal and that's it. So the Giants currently have $3.5 million in team cap space right now. If they trade Saquon Barkley, they can accumulate $7.2 million. That'd give them about $10.7 million in cap space. Other guys that could be cut, I don't think James Bradbury gets cut. I don't think that Leonard Williams gets cut. I think they're going to end up either, this is another one, Anthony. This is for 2023, but do you think that there's a possibility they don't pick up Daniel Jones' 5th-year option and try to re-sign him on a cheaper deal? Because this 5th-year option is like $20-something million.
They cannot pick up his 5th-year option. He has not proven to be worthy enough of getting the $22 million pickup on his 5th-year option. It's completely guaranteed. Yeah. Daniel Jones, no, he's not getting his 5th-year option picked up. If he does, oh my God, I will actually lose it. They have to decide pretty soon. But listen, Daniel Jones, even if we think he might be the future, there's a very strong possibility that he is not the future. So the Giants, if they want to extend him, don't do it with a 5th-year option in place. You could just do it one day, maybe. Like there's no way that they could decide to pick up his 5th-year option. He just hasn't proven it. He hasn't been consistent enough, and he's too often injured.
Yeah, no, I think the best move for Daniel Jones would be this. You don't pick up his 5th-year option, but you offer him a 1-year extension, and then maybe at $10 million. Because ultimately, if they even stick with him, that depending if maybe they go with Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh or they draft some. I have no idea.
He might stink next year. He might totally stink next year. And at that point, why would you because if he goes out next year, say Daniel Jones is the starter next year, and he is just terrible, you're not going to want that 5th-year option anymore. So what are you going to do? You're going to trade him? No one in the world is going to trade for Daniel Jones on a $22 million 5th-year
a new GM is going to reject it. I 100% believe a new general manager will reject it.
And they should.
Yeah,
and
they should because
a new general manager might come in this offseason and draft a quarterback. So at that point,
it's totally tough. I mean, look, we're going to be doing evaluations of all the players, right, at some point in this offseason. And the quarterback class is not great. But I'll tell you what, I've been watching a lot of Kenny Pickett lately. That kid's got something. Like, he's got some talent. I don't think he's a top 10 pick. Maybe he's a top 15 pick. But he's got some talent. He's got some wheels. He can throw off base. He has the arm angles. He has the athleticism. And I'm not saying that the Giants are going to draft a quarterback by any means. I think that they should not do that. I think they should wait until 2023. But a new GM coming in here, if they fire Joe Judge and they decide to reset with his guy, it could totally be a guy like Kenny Pickett. It could be a Malik Willis. It could be a variety of guys. Who the hell knows? This is going to be a very, very interesting offseason for the Giants. I'm totally here for it because at the end of the day, things have got to change. We have some decent foundational players. You have Andrew Thomas, you got Leonard Williams, you got James Bradbury, some good foundational pieces to build around. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of changes that need to be made. Offensive line, you have to potentially replace 4 starting positions. The Giants don't have the money for that. They're going to have to cut maybe Blake Martinez. And Blake Martinez, let's see what he's making. He'll count $5.5 million in dead money. If they release him, they'll save about $9 million, $8.5 million if they cut him. That's a decent chunk of change. You can sign a starting level player with that amount of money. I mean, Sterling Shepard, he's not worth cutting. You only save about $4 or $5 million. Maybe it's worth cutting him at that price. Maybe you try to trade him. I thought we should have tried to trade him at the deadline, but he was injured. Kyle Rudolph definitely gone. You'll save $5 million there. That guy is like just absolute. I don't know why the hell we signed him in the first place. We don't even get to the red zone often enough to even get him the ball. I mean, that's really the players you're looking at, though, right? Riley Dixon, you can cut the hell out of him. You'll save $3.4 million. I can't believe he's making $3.4 million to begin with. He is one of the worst punters I've ever seen. Matt Dodge level, the guy's absolute garbage booty. So you're really looking at a couple players here that can save you some money, but maybe you can clear $15 million, $20 million, but you're going to be accumulating a lot of dead money at that point. So, let's say they end up with $20 million. They restructure some deals. They push some money back to 2024. They end up with $25 million. You're going to have to invest probably half of that in your draft class, right? Because you have 2 first-round picks, right? You have 2 first-round pick. Let's look at what Kadarius Toney's being paid right now. Kadarius Toney is making let's see. Hold on a second. For 2021, Kadarius Toney is earning $2.5 million. So that's the 20th overall pick, right? If you have 2 top 10 picks, you're paying them what, $4-5 million a piece. That's already half of your cap space. So you're left with what, 15 million. Maybe you can sign some players, low cap hit, push it to later years. That's what the Giants did with Kenny Golladay and Leonard Williams' new contract. So you could do that. But at the end of the day, Anthony, we don't have the money to solve the pass rush and offensive line. In my opinion, you're going to have to allocate $15 to $20 million. You're going to have to move some of that cap space, like the players that you do sign to 2024, 2025, when those deals really kick in. You're going to have to sign. You're going to have to draft 2 offensive linemen. One of those top 10 picks have to be an offensive lineman. I think that the second round pick should be a guard. I don't like drafting centers. In the top 10 picks, people like Tyler Linderbaum. I love him as well. I don't think you draft him in the top 10 picks. Centers do not go that early. They never do. I don't think a center's been gone in the top 10 picks in years. So I'd say you can get a decent guy in the second round. Maybe you get a guard there. Maybe you sign a center. Centers are a lot cheaper to sign than they are, to draft. So I think maybe you sign a new center, you draft a guard in the second round, you draft an offensive tackle in one of those top 10 picks, and you get a pass rusher. If you can get Aiden Hutchinson, Evan Neal, or another top offensive tackle, you're in really, really good spot. Getting Hutchinson's really tough though, Anthony. What do you think about this? How do you think the Giants may go about this?
I got to say, the sign a center and go with a guard in the second round, that's exactly to a T what the Giants did in 2018, and it didn't work.
Yeah, but it's the
So
talent evaluaters. They just did a shit job
it's a
evaluating the
talent
players that actually
evaluators,
did.
but let's be for real. Everybody
Wait, who did
said
they
that it
sign at
was.
center?
Everybody said that. Well, they eventually got Nick Gates and moved him to center, but I don't remember
Well, he
who the
was
center
undrafted.
was
He
in
was an undrafted
2018.
free agent. John Halapio. He was like
Yes, that's who
he's
they
not even in
signed.
the
You're
NFL any
right. You're
longer.
right. They
He's not even
signed
in the
John
league.
Halapio. Correct, but
I'm saying
still,
actually spend some money. Spend some actual money at center.
they
Don't pick up practice squad
they're
star.
strapped for cash. The Giants don't have a lot of money. They're
You can
strapped for
spend.
cash.
I know, but
Listen,
you could push the
Tyler
deal. Push the
Linderbaum.
deal.
Tyler Linderbaum is different. You know what else they say? You don't draft an offensive guard in the top 10. Is anybody saying that about
Unless it's
Quentin
Quentin
Nelson?
Nelson.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but
exactly.
it's
And
Quentin
people are
Nelson. He's a
saying that Tyler
generational
Linderbaum
prospect.
is going to be a talent like that at center, a generational center talent. So I think it's
I
too
don't think
soon.
that
I
people are
think
comparing him to that.
Listen, it's
I don't think he's
December.
being compared to
I've heard
that.
people make those comparisons. Either way, it's December. It's
That's a
too
stupid
soon to
comparison.
decide. It's too soon, Alex. It's too soon to decide that you can't draft Tyler Linderbaum right now. It's December.
No, I'm
Let's
not
give it
saying
some
don't
time. You
draft
still
him.
got the
I'm saying
combine.
if
You
you
still
trade
got
back
the combine.
if you trade
I'm
back to the
okay with.
10
Here's my point.
15
My
range, I'm
point
okay
is,
with
I'm
it.
okay with an interior offensive lineman in the top 10. I'm okay with it. The Giants have too many problems on the offensive line to be worrying that much about the positional value. They have to get their offensive line straightened out, whether that means take an interior offensive lineman in the top 10 or not. They just have to get it straightened out. Stop waiting until the second round to get Will Hernandez's of the world, because you know what? Yes, talent evaluators might be way better. We might think that we're getting a much better player than we got in Will Hernandez in 2018. But keep in mind, everyone thought that Will Hernandez was a first-round talent in 2018 when we drafted him. Granted, we got a first-round talent in Xavier McKinney in the
Could be the
second round.
coaches. We've
That
gone
was
through
a hit.
4 offensive line coaches since then. The guy has no
Well, I've
continuity
I've
either.
mentioned that multiple times. I said that a
Yeah,
couple episodes ago that the offensive line coaches were a huge problem for Will Hernandez, and that I think that he could be a better player on another team.
I
However,
agree with that.
it's still at the end of the day, the Giants, you can't just bank on, we can find this position in the second round. If you find a player at the position and he's really good, doesn't matter where you're picking, you should just freaking pick him at this point because the Giants just have to settle the offensive line. Now, to your other point of all the names that you mentioned, all the people that you listed that we might have to cut, this roster in reality is a gut job. The Giants are going to have to overturn this roster almost completely over the course of the next 2
Blake,
seasons,
yeah.
and we're
Maybe
not going to
Blake.
be competitive for the next 3 to 5. That's clear as day to me. That's honestly how I see it. It's a gut job for the next 2 years. The next GM comes in, tears it apart for 2 years, keeps the core players, Andrew Thomas, Xavier McKinney, and a couple others. That's pretty much it, though. There's not a whole lot to salvage on this roster. Even the great players like Leonard Williams, James Bradbury, Blake Martinez, they're veterans, meaning they're old and they're not getting any younger or better, and they're on ginormous contracts. So this roster, at the end of the day, is a gut job. It's going to take 2 years to overturn it and get it back into a position where it can be rebuilt, and then you're going to have to rebuild it, and that's another 2 years. That's the way that I look at this New York Giants roster. Dave Gettleman, he has done way too much damage to this team. He should be fired midseason. They shouldn't even wait till the end of the year because the amount of damage that he's done, I'm telling you guys, it's not a quick turnaround. Roster rebuilds take about 3 years. Look at the Cardinals. They're one of the best teams in the league. It took them 3 years to get there. So the Giants are going to take some time, and we're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to suffer through it, but we're going to have to slowly watch the development of good young players and a decent talent evaluator finding these good young players before we're actually a good team. It's not going to happen overnight,
I don't
and the
mind
Giants are going to have
suffering.
to overturn this roster completely.
Look, there's a difference between suffering and seeing progress and suffering and then getting worse. Right now, we are suffering and getting worse. And that's what pisses me off the most. If we were suffering and seeing a little bit of growth, some steps forward, actual positivity that Joe Judge clamors on about after every game that we get blown out, if we're seeing actual progress, I'm okay suffering through that until we're a good team because that gives us some positivity, some positive momentum, and some stuff to actually talk about. Where this team is going, what we're seeing, and slowly starting to come together. But we've just gone progressively worse. Now, I disagree with you on the fact that the entire roster needs to be gutted. I think that we have a good defense. I
A
think that Adoree
majority.
Jackson's
A
injured.
majority.
The majority.
Here's
I
here's
think that
my
the
thing though. I
offense needs to be
agree.
gutted
Defense is great.
completely. The offense needs to be gutted completely.
Complete gut job of the offense. But the defense is really good for the next couple of years until Blake Martinez,
Agreed.
James Bradbury, Adoree
They may cut
Jackson,
Blake.
these
They
guys
may
age a
cut
little more.
Blake.
They
Coming off
might.
an
And
ACL tear, they might cut
Logan
him.
Ryan's in his 30s. All these players that we're mentioning are like in their 30s. They're getting old, they're close to their 30s or they're in their 30s. So yeah, this defense is great right now. I don't think it needs to be gutted for next season, but give it 2 years, it's going to start declining rapidly. And it's probably going to need to be gutted by then. So this whole roster, I mean, the whole idea of being a
You
good
can't cut
GM,
Logan.
you cut ties
11 million in dead
you
cap.
cut ties early. That's what you're supposed to do. No, you can't cut him yet. But basically, what I'm saying is, if you're taking this long term approach that a GM should take, that's not the one that Dave Gettleman took. He took a short term approach, and that's why we're in such a mess. But if you're taking a long term approach to this team, this defense, yes, is great right now. Give it a couple years, and it won't be. So you need to move on from these players sooner rather than later. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be fun. The fans are going to hate it, but it's the only solution to fixing this team in the future.
Yeah. So the players that I do believe the Giants will try to get rid of this offseason, Anthony, you can let me know what you think of these guys specifically. I mean, this upcoming offseason, I think they try to trade Saquon Barkley. I know you probably agree with that. I know you said it before. So $7.2 million off the cap if they can manage to trade him. James Bradbury, there's always teams looking to do stupid shit like trade for a running back who's coming off ACL tear and multiple injuries. We've seen teams make worse decisions. I mean, the Texans just constantly are like a garbage pile, so maybe they'll take him on. James Bradbury, I don't think we let him go. $22 million cap hit next year. It's $9.7 million if we let him go in dead money. I just don't. I know we'd save about $12 million there, but your $10 million dead cap hit is a lot. It's a lot to take on. 2023, it's a $1.3 million cap hit. So you're looking at, a way reduced price, and then you're still getting a really good player. I think, the player that you're really looking to cut in 2023 is Leonard Williams, who's going to be making $26 million and it's $8.3 million in dead cap. So you're saving $20 million there. That's the player we're going to cut in 2023. You better believe it. But next year, I don't think they cut James Bradbury. Saquon Barkley for sure. Leonard Williams definitely not next year. He has a dead cap of $35 million. If you want to really screw yourself, go ahead and do that. I would say that Blake Martinez is definitely on the cuts category list. In my opinion, you save about $8.5 million. It's $5.5 million in dead cap. $8.5 million, you can sign a starting level center, a good starting level center, in my opinion, with $8.5 million. I think you reallocate that money. You draft a linebacker in the third round to replace him coming off ACL tear. It's really difficult. I don't expect Blake Martinez to be the same type of player coming off an ACL tear in his first year. Tate Crowder can be a good LB2 next to a starter. I don't think he should be the Mike. I don't think he's good enough. I think he's a decent LB2. That's what I see his role being in the future. Adoree Jackson, $18.5 million cap hit, dead money. No way. Sterling Shepard, $8 million dead money cap hit. No way unless we can trade him. But I don't think a team's going to want to take an aging, injury-prone receiver. Kyle Rudolph, you're saving about $5 million there. You can kiss him goodbye already. He is gonzo. Logan Ryan, $11 million dead cap. He's going to be a $12 million cap hit. There's no way you can cut him this next offseason. Riley Dixon. So really you're looking at probably Devontae Booker being cut. You save $2 million there. Riley Dixon, $3.4 million there. So you're already at about $5 million. Kyle Rudolph, another $5 million. That's $10 million. Blake Martinez, that's about $9 million. You're already about $20 million. And then if you can trade Saquon, you got about $27 million plus the $3.5 million. You have $30 million to spend if you get rid of those guys. I think those are doable things. It's doable to get rid of those guys. $30 million. You can do the same. You can structure the contracts in the future the same way they did this past offseason. Low money in the first year, and then the second year you pile on the cash. You cut Leonard Williams in 2023. You save $20 million. That now takes over. You have to invest in a new left guard. You have to invest in a new right guard, and you have to draft a right tackle, and then you probably have to draft a center. Maybe it's Tyler Linderbaum. Maybe they sign somebody. Maybe it's a mid-round pick. Who knows? But that's how I see this going, Anthony. Do you think that's reasonable? Do you think those guys are probably the ones on the way out?
Yeah, I mean, probably them and a whole lot of others. Like I said, I think that this roster
Yeah,
is a
that's
gut
probably
job.
true.
I think it's unfortunate because there's a lot of really talented players on this team that I'm a huge fan of. Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, really like a lot of these guys, but unfortunately, it just seems like the timing is poor and the roster construction and the money allocated is just terrible. And a lot of these guys are going to have to relocate with their families and move on to new locations and new teams, and it's not their fault. It's Dave Gettleman's fault. He built this roster really poorly and set them up for failure, and it sucks. But at the end of the day, I'm a Giants fan, so I'm not a fan of any individual players. I'm a fan of individual players. Once a Giant, always a Giant for sure. But at the end of the day, I'm a Giants fan. So we got to do what we got to do. New GM has to come in, do what he must to overturn this roster and create a good one because this roster right now is not a good one. And he's got to come in, fix it, and make a good roster so the Giants can get back to their winning ways and being the legendary sports franchise that they are. And it will happen one day. So please, Giants fans, keep your heads up. It's going to be really, really tough for a while. It's like it has been, but it'll turn around one day and the Giants will be better one day and it'll all be worth it then.
Well, we can hope so, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fireside Giants, going through a variety of different topics, debating about a couple of different players that may or may not be drafted or how the Giants would strategize this. We'll have a lot of different strategy-based content in the future where Anthony and I will probably be on different sides of the equation and debating on what players, what strategy, where they should be allocating resources. It's going to be fun because this ultimately is what the franchise is boiled down to, and we need to get in the right direction. This is the second attempt at a rebuild upcoming. We need to get it right this time. John Mara needs to take a step back. He needs to hire a football guy that's not his freaking family member and he's not best friends with, and that's not a prehistoric dinosaur who is best, speaking with Tyrannosaurus Rexes. I need to see a modernized version of the front office. The front office needs to modernize. They need to stop with the nepotism. They need to stop with thinking that they know everything because clearly they know absolute nothing. They know absolutely nothing. Chris Mara, step the frick down, bro. Get the hell out of here. You're good at finding receivers, but nothing else. And I have to say, I appreciate everyone still tuning in, and I know it's been a long season, but we're not going anywhere. We have a lot more content left to produce. We have a lot more to debate, and at this point, we're just angry. It's going to be a lot of angry debates and conversations and strategizing of what we think needs to happen. And of course, Anthony will be doing a series on new general manager candidates coming up and their histories and what they offer this team. It should be fun, and I'm excited to listen to those as well as you guys. But make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube if you enjoyed this entire conversation, the information that you did gain from this, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.